girl talk no one asked for, but you know you want to hear. What's up, Tings? And welcome back to another episode of the Tings Talk podcast.
The girl talk that nobody asked for.
But you know you want to hear.
And we are honored to have our special guest, Adrina.
Yeah.
What's up, Adrina?
Woo, welcome.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I feel like I've been summoned by like the council of like freaking saints or guardians or whatever you want to call it. No, I really do appreciate you guys having me on today.
Aw, no problem.
We love you, Adrina, and we love having you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Adrina Rodriguez. I'm here from Long Island, New York. I am I guess you could call my business like a social media marketing management, videography, photography, social media. And that's my career. On the side, I like to travel. I really like to travel.
Ooh, who doesn't?
Tell us where you were just recently.
I was in Colombia, in Cartagena and Santa Marta. Amazing time, definitely 10 out of 10 recommend. But I like to just travel, see the world. I very much enjoy reading, learning new things, and just I don't know, just living my life.
Awesome. Be a
expanding my knowledge.
sponge.
Exactly. Like there's so
Yeah.
much in the world to take in. I just try to take in as much as my brain can humanly take in at one time.
Yeah.
We're so happy that you're here today.
Thank you.
It's like girl power all the way to
Wow.
10. All right, so we have Adrina on here, and being that we are a full cast of Latina women here,
Spicy.
yeah, we extra spicy. We got our topic for today is growing up in a Latina household. Now, like, how strict were your parents growing up?
Oof.
Hmm.
Very strict. I had literally bars on my windows. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. I actually did, but that's how the house
You
was
were
when
in
we bought
prison?
it.
What were you doing?
No, but I mean, I grew up with mom and dad are both Latino. My parents actually got divorced very young when I was very young. So I grew up with not only Latino, which is already strict at that, and Latino single mother at that. Yes. So
Shout out to the single moms out there
Yeah.
doing it up, raising us correctly.
Mommy, I love you. I mean, I had very strict parents. I don't know about you guys. I want to say I had to break out of like my strict mom. I had to like break away and like steal almost like my freedom at the age of like 20, 21.
I definitely could relate to that 100%.
And I think you guys experienced it because
We met you around like
yeah, you guys
2021.
met me around
Yeah.
that. And then like when I tell you, we'd go out, my mom, 11, 12, I get a call.
Ooh, the curfew.
Oh,
Oh, I
really?
don't miss that.
11 or 12 o'clock. Mind you, I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm either like a senior in college or I graduated college. I have my degree. I have a full-time job. I have my car. And like mom is like, nope, you still live at home with me. So you coming home.
Really?
she's like,
At
yeah.
Our rules
2021?
are the highway.
Yeah. So funny enough, I'm 26 now and she doesn't blow up my phone anymore. We've had, very adult, civilized conversations. But she'll still tell me like, yo, when are you going home? When are you coming home? And then like sometimes I'll come home late and then in the morning she's like, what time did you get home last night? And now I just kind of blow her off. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't look at the time. Yeah, but like it's out there. It's real.
No, 100%. Like, I felt like, when they say like you have the white picket fence and all, like I had what I used to call was my abuela's house. She had the white picket prison fence. And this was like literally like, when they have you fenced in and you go out into the yard and you get your free time. Like I was not allowed outside of that white fence. Like my friends would come to the white fence. We'd play ball over the fence.
That's awesome.
Like we were literally like, I was not allowed outside of that perimeter. So like that's how strict like growing up I was. Like,
Shout out to Abuela, by the way.
Yeah,
she is the absolute best.
Yeah.
We love Abuela.
there was reasons why I was probably supposed to be behind that fence, but like I said, I guess it's because they learned while they were growing up. Like, all right, this is what we got to do to protect our angels.
They also grew up in like different circumstances and different cultures and countries.
I agree. I think it was the protection. I mean, I feel like I grew up in a completely opposite situation as you guys, but I feel like from what I hear about people that grew up in typical Latino households and such, it was out of love. Like, it's just they're coming from
Absolutely.
a country where girls especially are very vulnerable and are easily targeted, and they come to the US and they just kind of carry that mentality with them. It's not out of any kind of misogyny or sexism. It's just out of like, this is how they think.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. And how about you, Benelli?
No, my parents were like the most easygoing people, to be honest. Like, I'll go sleep over my friend's house. And they were okay with it. I was 15, 16, 17, and they would let me go sleep over.
Yeah.
That was a big no-no.
So for
in
me,
my
that's like
house.
crazy for me. Like, I was my mom's young baby girl, you know, and she would just let me. But my dad also wasn't in the house. Like, he was in DR.
Yeah.
So I feel like if he was in the picture, he
Would've
probably
been
would have been
different.
like, where are you going? You know, being a protector dad, something like that.
Yeah, because
But-
your daddy's little girl too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But my mom was like lenient.
Yeah, my mom was like my mom and my dad.
Yeah,
So I got
wow.
like the 2-in-1,
Yeah.
like powwow.
Absolutely.
So she was just like shield everything.
Yeah.
Like
So at 26. This is the first time I ever slept over someone's house.
Are you kidding me?
Aside from like my ex-boyfriend who like we dated, and we were dating for a while when I started like sleeping over at his place. And like that was the first time I ever slept over anyone's house. I'm 26.
Not even a girl, like a girl's
No,
house?
not even a girl.
Same here.
Not even
Interesting.
family.
What?
No, nobody.
they
So
would
like
have to come sleep over at my house.
Yes.
Wait, not even family?
not even family.
Like a cousin for the
Nope.
summer?
And I have to say, this is the stuff I always took for granted growing up, because I grew up, my mother was a Dominican immigrant. My father was born and raised here in the States, but raised by an immigrant. And I never realized how much I took that for granted since, like, I would say 5th, maybe even 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
I was sleeping over all my friends' house. I would always,
Nice.
like, if there was hangouts with like some boys and stuff, my mother would be very calm about it. I never realized until I got to college and I started talking more and conversating more with people that grew up from like strict, fully immigrant households, how much freedom my mother allocated to me compared to like my peers. And again, it's just like, it's so interesting because she was raised in the Dominican Republic with a very, very strict Dominican mother. And I think the trauma of like growing up with that made her realize I don't want to impose that on my daughters. And she allowed me to have freedom. She set boundaries, she set rules, she said like be home at a certain time if you go out. But she was never like, you know, you can't sleep over a girl's house or you can't sleep over. But what's interesting is even so, like sometimes I would sleep over a girl's house with that. They had a father in the house. My mother would always question me like, was the father weird? Did he seem off to you? And if I said, no, he was fine, you know, whatever, which they always were, she was like, okay. And then let me just stay over.
So now let me ask you, when you were, I mean, obviously now we're adults and we know why they ask. When you were a kid growing up and she asked you that, did you think of like, maybe why is she asking me this? Like, did you understand why she asked you that?
Oh, no, I never questioned it because my mother very much was in tune with the whole stranger danger movement of like the early 2000s. And she was very blunt about me. Like, you know, there are men that will take girls and touch them in places you don't want to be touched. And I grew up knowing that men like this exist. Like she made me watch like Law and Order SVU with her and stuff. So
You're well informed then.
I was
That's
I
awesome.
knew that these kind of monsters existed, and I think, you know, she was, you know, she made me aware of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it wasn't in my consciousness, but it didn't catch me off guard if she asked questions like that, and I never was upset with her or anything like that. So looking back at it, I'm just like, I think it was pretty forward thinking of her as a, you know, first, you know, like newly immigrant woman raising her first generation American child in the States, to allow that kind of freedom and be open like that with those kind of questions. Because I also noticed that too. It's like, did any of your mothers ever explain to you like why they imposed those restrictions on you at all? Or was it kind of like, this is just how it is? And
I feel like at first it was kind of like, this is what it is and these are my rules. And then as like you got older, they got a little more like open about why those were my rules. And then you obviously like, I'm not a mother, obviously, not yet. But when I do become one, I probably would have those same fears too.
of course.
Like, you know, like I don't know where my baby's at. And like, I want to know everywhere she's at. I like, you know, my mother was to the point of like, she'd show up Like, and this is before like Apple had the location. Like, this is like I would have to tell my mom.
This is mom's like radar going off, like the intuition.
Before like Find My Location was a thing. My mom was Apple location. Like, she's like, where are you at? Drop a pin. I'm coming.
Wow.
Making sure you're there, because that's how much like she probably went through, and that was that fear of like, I don't want my daughter to go through that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like one of those. I think that's why it's like, that fear is what made them so strict. Because it was just like, I don't want my baby going
Wow, my
through
mom was definitely not strict. That's crazy.
I feel
Like I'm trying to like relate and I can't. Because she let me at 17 go to London. She let me go to Disney. Yeah, she let me go to She let me go to Disney World with the whole senior class. Like she gave me my wings.
Oh my gosh, my mom didn't even let me go to the school dance.
So my mom was really like, girl,
Now,
go do you.
But let me ask you this: Can I offer a question? If you guys think that you were born boys, would it have been as strict or would it have been less?
With my mom, and no, I'll tell you why. My brother is 5 years older than me, right? Obviously male.
We know your brother.
You guys know him. Shout out to Kevin. Love you. Crazy. He's literally, it's so funny because we're polar opposites. We're both party animals, but he's just like on a whole other level, like on a different planet.
I love hanging out.
Yes. He always comes around. But anyway, my brother, he's 5 years older than me, and he was not allowed out of the house either. Luckily, luckily we had neighbors that were, the older brother was his exact age, same brother, same age, same birthday, year, the whole nine. So they actually used to celebrate birthdays together and all that. And then the younger brother, who was a little close, he was like in between, but he was my best friend growing up. So we had two best friends right next door, and my brother would always go with them. So like, because they were there, that's why he had friends growing up in that sense. And then obviously like school, whatever. But like, he was not allowed to go anywhere. The first time he was allowed out on his own was his senior prom.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That's good. He's 17 then.
Yeah, but look at you're telling us about
17.
sleepovers and all that stuff at 15, 14, 16. Like he wasn't allowed to go to the movies. He wasn't allowed to get food. He would only be allowed with our neighbors. And our neighbors had cousins. These are all like the guys that I grew up with. These are like Ortega, shout out to all of you. Love them to death. Yeah. So these are the guys that we grew up with, and these are like family friends now. We're like a second family altogether, and those are the only people he was allowed to be out with.
Interesting.
Which is crazy because you don't really hear that with most guys. But like my mom is just, she's hardcore.
Wow. I don't get that. She's so sweet.
She's a sweetheart. No, love you, Mom. You are an absolute angel. She's a sweetheart. She's so funny.
She seems like so laid back. Like,
yeah
guys, have fun now.
Yeah. No, but even now, like if you guys come to the house, like right before we leave, she'll be like, okay. No, not. Oh, I was gonna say.
My mom too, though. My mom, no llegues tarde de la casa. ¿A dónde van? Like, where are you going? Don't get home late.
Yeah, she'll be like, nada de estar tomando y manejando.
And then she'll be like, oh, is your man going?
She's like, don't drink too much. Like she every time, and like we're old. Well, not old, but like we're older. We're old enough.
To this day, my mom's a little weird. She'll be like, she feels safe if I'm going out with my significant other.
Yes.
Like if I'm going by myself, she's like worried. But if he's going, she feels better about it. I'm like,
okay.
okay.
She's more worried now than back then.
She's like, when I go out by myself, she's more worried. She's more worried now when I go out by myself.
It's funny.
I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, when I was with my ex, my mom was like that too. Like as soon as I told her, I'm like, oh, I'm going out with this person. I'm going out with my significant other, with my boyfriend. Okay, whatever. Like didn't even question me, nothing. But if I told her I'm going out with the girls, texts, calls. Like now she doesn't do it anymore. But like, yeah, that's how it was.
So I'm hearing a lot that you guys' parents are like, basically, they were born in the motherlands, right?
Yes,
mine was born in the motherlands.
My mother was. My father was born in Brooklyn, but
Okay.
he was
Where
raised
Brooklyn
by
at? Where
Brooklyn?
Crown Heights, back when it was nothing than just like like decrepit projects and like brownstones. Completely.
He was there from the start.
He used to live. He said like the brownstone he lived in was owned by his aunt, who was married to a man that actually owned porn theaters all throughout Manhattan, and used to dress up in like those old fashioned, like almost pimpish like outfits with the hat and the coats. He used to be like, I look up to this man.
That's why our moms didn't want us out.
But my
they
mother
lived through that.
But my mother was raised in Santo Domingo in Dominican. Well, she came here when she was about 14 years old.
Oh, so they grew up here.
They grew up here, yeah. So it's a little different. So I feel like I just want to bounce off of something that Adrina said earlier. I agree with. I think our parents, not that they're like, I guess they've got trauma as kids or anything like that, but I feel like in general, we all want to give our children better lives than we had. So I feel like in a way, you know, not for nothing, I had a super strict mom. So now I feel like, you know, I want to be able to have that communication with my kid. Not that I didn't. My mom and I are still super close and I tell her everything. But like, I want to be able to do that with my kid and like give them a little more freedom than I had.
Yeah.
But at the same token, my mom tells me all the time, she's like, you're going to be the general with your kids. Cause like, I don't have,
see that.
I don't have
10 push-ups.
Right? Like,
yeah. So like, I don't have kids yet, but I have a dog and he's my kid. And like, when I tell you,
yell at him?
I yell at him, I scold him. He is my child. And my mom just laughs.
Booty slaps, damn.
Just thinking.
No, it's funny because like I speak to the dog stern and then she's like, yo, I can't even
listen?
He does listen. He's a very good dog.
Aww.
Good boy.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. My little Simba. But yeah, so like she tells me like, yo, if you're like that with your dog, can you imagine your kids? Like,
Hey.
so like I don't know if it really is gonna change from generation to generation completely, you know?
I think you just need to be aware of what, like, if you're aware of it, then
Right.
there is a possibility it can change. I feel like there's aspects of our childhood, because let's be honest, like to an extent, our parents' upbringing did work. We're obviously well brought up women, educated, smart, and with good morals. So to an extent, it did work. Did we need the extraness? I don't think so.
I agree.
I think, like, you know, there's certain things that my mom did raising me that I definitely will not be doing with my children. But there are things that she did with me that I'm like, I definitely am going to use that method with my raising my kids. So I think it's kind of like a pick and choose kind of thing. You use the old school, whichever country your parents came from, and then you use the Americanism that we were raised from, which I also think is a good transition to probably what you want to talk about next.
Oh yeah, of course, because it's like, you know, we're talking about that culture, right? Because you know, they held that culture and they brought it over to America. Now, being that we are maybe like the or third generation in, do you guys feel that we're losing a little bit of that culture?
If
I feel like, go ahead.
No, if I could speak. So I grew up in a very interesting situation. So with my mother, she came here, she was about 14 years old, which is a very like important part of the developmental ages, so to speak. You're transitioning from child to adulthood. And she didn't speak any English. I know for a fact, she would never have admitted it, but she...
Wait, your mom doesn't speak English?
So she was bilingual. She passed about 9 years ago. So unfortunately, a lot of what I know about her is very, you know, there's a lot of factual versus theoretical. I know that she went through a lot of bullying when she came here. And it's interesting because growing up, I was not bilingual. Even though both my parents were bilingual, their mothers, their parents were all Spanish, mainly Spanish speaking. And even though I grew up in a, they took me to a school that was English speaking, was Catholic school, but my family still spoke English. My father growing up told me, it's like, oh, well, we just assumed you would pick it up, even though they never spoke it to me.
Fast forward to Spanish, right?
With Spanish, yes. So fast forward to after my mother passes away, I'm talking to my uncle, my mother's brother, and he tells me, oh, your mother didn't want you to learn Spanish when you were a baby because she didn't want you to develop an accent, the typical Dominican American accent that we...
And to be honest, I don't hear an accent in you.
No,
when I first met you, I didn't think you were Spanish.
English was my first language. I didn't learn Spanish until I was in high school and was taught it in high school. And so I feel like with my mother, there are certain aspects I feel like in terms of principle and morale, you work hard for everything. You're not entitled. Nothing is given to you, which is a lot of immigrants are raised on that. And that I was raised with. And I would say more it's just like cultural norms. Like I clean my house every Saturday morning, or I try to. Or
you play the Spanish music and you dance
I
with the
play,
broom.
you know, exactly.
That never gets lost. That
never happened in my house. No.
Interesting.
My mom does not blast music to broom.
Not even a Bad Bunny, at least, man. Like,
I'll put Bad Bunny.
I'm dumbfounded by that.
Girl, my mom did not play no music to clean.
No.
Throwbacks?
No.
I feel like that's how I learned my Spanish.
I didn't know about Selena until I was about 22
I was
years
obsessed
old.
with Selena.
I am.
I cried when I was 1 year old.
I would exactly.
I'm like, I cried. I was one.
No, I mean, like, I don't know about you guys. I mean, clearly Benelli didn't. Girls,
Yo, I'm like the least Spanish household. Like,
Yeah,
what's
her
going on
cousin's big.
here?
I'm
No,
questioning
kidding.
you right now.
I know, I'm like dumbfounded.
Oh my God.
No, so like growing up on Saturdays, like Saturdays were our day. My family's very like, we do not like to wake up early. If we are off, we are sleeping in. So, 11, 12 o'clock hits and she's like, all right, everybody up, let's go. Everyone up, starts playing the music. And then she's like, all right, you're cleaning your room. You're doing your laundry. Kaylee, you're going to, either like Kevin, you're going to sweep and Kaylee, you're going to mop, or we're going to swap, or we're going to do one or the other.
Everybody's
Swap,
got
mop,
their-
sleep,
Yep.
sleep, mop, swap.
It's a team effort.
Wait, I do have a question though for you guys that were raised by stricter mothers, and this is gonna sound odd, but did your mothers ever let you cut your hair? Or did you have to grow your hair long?
I got a story for that.
Let me hear this because I'm
What?
curious.
My thing is like now that she let me, I took it upon myself to get myself bangs, and I wish she
You
was there.
did?
I wish she was there to stop me.
Oh
Mom, that was the
my
one time I
God.
needed you to intervene.
We need a picture. Put a picture. somewhere.
we need to like pop the picture right here.
Dude, I wore bangs for like 10 years. Well,
Yes, I remember.
As
I
friends, y'all should have told me.
I
but
met
as my
you-
mom, you should have
I
told
met
me.
you
not to
with
cut
I
my
met you
hair.
with bangs.
But I
met you
thought
with
that
the-
was you.
I met you
like-
with the blonde bangs.
Yeah, no, those bangs
I met her with red
hard.
bangs.
Dude, the bangs were.
It's interesting because like we're talking about like like keeping like with the culture.
Yeah,
It's
that's
interesting
actually a
because
real thing.
in some aspects I feel like my mother was hell bent on making sure that I broke away from certain cultural
yeah.
aspects. Now my mother wore the pants in our household. My father was very subordinate and passive. So but he was also American. He was more American than anything. So he was a lot more like, all right, you do your thing, lady.
That's
But it's
amazing.
like-
he didn't have the machismo in him.
He
Yeah.
really
a lot
did
of
not.
Spanish, there's a lot of Spanish families and households have that.
My mother would let him from time to time, I think, to keep his pride. But at the end of the day, because it was interesting, because I had a friend growing up in middle school and into high school. She was of Guatemalan descent, totally different lifestyle. And she always had this her beautiful long black hair. But my mother, since I was probably in like third grade, all the way up until like my freshman year of high school, where I finally said no, she always made me cut my hair every single year. And she told me, she's like, well, you want to enter the new year of school with a different haircut, a new look.
Okay.
But I think it's because probably her mother never let her cut her hair, or somebody told her you can't cut your hair. And I think like in a weird traumatic opposite effect, she was like, no, you need to cut your hair. I don't think she wanted me to
Not cut it.
not cut it and fall in those typical standards and stereotypes that Latino girls tend to fall into.
So let me
families.
tell you.
Yeah.
So here's my hair is very short now. This is actually
You're
grown-
always chopping
This
it.
is let me tell you, and I think
I've
that's,
never seen you with long.
Yes, you have. You met
No.
me with long. You met me.
No.
It was like
you met
a
me
long
with hair
time.
down to my waist.
But that was like years ago.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that now that like
That's so pretty.
we're uprooting some like childhood trauma right now.
Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Not actually traumatized, but no, my hair is very short. This is actually grown out. I have cut it, and normally it's like about up to here, probably. So this is pretty grown out. So growing up, my mom was the only one to touch my hair, and she would just trim, right?
Yeah.
So my hair growing up was always down to my waist,
Interesting.
and she would always send me to school with a braid because she didn't want my hair to get damaged or whatever the case is.
Wow.
So I always had hair in a braid. It was not allowed to be loose.
Really?
Yeah, it was not allowed to be cut. Nobody could touch it. I wasn't allowed to dye it.
Interesting.
And then
That's a thing.
dyeing thing.
The dyeing thing.
I was not allowed to dye my
My-
hair.
I
My
wasn't even
mother-
allowed to
my
paint
mother
my
let
nails.
me dye my hair actually.
I
When
wasn't
was
even
a
allowed to
junior.
paint my nails. Yeah.
Oh,
So
no.
So I think that's probably plays a role as to why. I mean, right now I don't have them done, but I always have my nails done. I always cut my hair. Like I'm always doing something different to my hair. I've had it blonde, red, black, brown, short, long, the whole nine. So my thing is, one day I would always ask my mom, like, Mom, can you cut my hair? I want it shorter. No, you're not cutting your hair. No, you're not cutting your hair. So one day I took it.
You
upon
went home
myself.
and
you
had a
go.
whole short
I got
hair.
home. I always got home from school earlier than her. So I got home. I said, you know what? I'm gonna cut my own hair.
You cut your own hair.
Nothing is more dangerous
Don't
than
cut
like
your own
a,
hair,
than a
please.
middle schooler with a scissor. There's
But
nothing
not.
more dangerous.
So let me tell you, I had an agenda. I was like, I know it's not going to be good.
Was it
I know
ugly?
it's no. I
Was it
knew
bad?
No, it wasn't bad actually. But I knew that it wasn't going to be perfect. But my mom cannot help herself, and she's going to be like, I am not letting my daughter walk around with crooked hair. So I got home. I said, today's the day. Split it in half. I put it like this. I braided it. I put the second hair tie up here. It wasn't this short. My short back then was like maybe here.
That's about to the breast, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's long for me. That's like more than double what I have now. My hair used to be down to like my waist, right? So I took it upon myself. I said, I'm going to cut it. And you know what? She's going to even it out when I get home. Now I'm going to force her to cut my hair.
So what happened?
And just like everything else, I had to take my own freedom. I had to take my own hair too. So yeah, she got home. She went off. She was like, who told you can cut your hair? Are you crazy? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, damn, I don't think it's even, Mom. I think you need to cut it and even it out.
You gotta play the innocent
role. I was like, yeah. So I cut my hair. And then I was able to grow it out again, whatever. I've gone from like long to short. And then like right now it's stunted. It kind of just hasn't grown. But I think I like my short hair.
No, that's
honestly,
good on
I'm
you.
gonna say like you ladies could rock the short look. Not everyone could do that.
I don't
like you ladies. Like
you guys can rock it.
Yeah, like
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to grow it out. It's interesting because all those years of my mother forcing me to cut my hair short and me just believing that, you want to have a new look. When I was a freshman in high school, I said to my mother, I said, no, I'm not going to cut my hair this year. And all throughout high school, I just let it grow until a point that it was Pocahontas. My mother despised it. It's interesting because you say things like my mother did
opposite. Your mom really wanted.
It's interesting with unfortunately, I don't know what kind of trauma and what she experienced, but my theory is that she probably experienced so much oppression from her mother growing up, and you can't do this, you can't do that. She probably experienced a lot of bullying because she had an accent or she spoke, Spanish too much, and she was just not American enough in her high school. I think that she wanted me, like, it was weird. Like, I remember I was invited. I'm an introvert. My default.
I was gonna say definitely not that.
My default mode is to cuddle up with my dog on my couch, read a book, or watch a good movie. But
shout out to Scarlett.
And Scars.
She's the best.
I remember being in middle school when my personality comes out. My mother I would get invited to parties from kids in school, and I didn't want to go because it's like, ew. But my mother would be like, no. She literally said, like, you have to go. You're going to regret not going to these parties and stuff like that. Now looking back at it, I realize it's probably because maybe she was invited or she wanted to go to these parties. She was never allowed to. I remember prom was such an interesting thing. I literally did the opposite of every single thing my mother wanted me to do. She wanted like the typical like big fluffy Cinderella prom dress. I got a 2-piece. She wanted me to wear my hair, nice and like curly and flat. I got it in an updo. She wanted me to wear like Cinderella style heels. I got these stripper looking Atlantic City kind of things. It was the opposite because
I want to see a picture of this.
I need to see a picture.
Can we like put a picture?
I will gladly submit a picture to it. But it's interesting because again, it's like I hear stories of like kids that were raised by immigrant parents from their, and it's like I wish I can relate. I understand, but I can't relate because I think,
So funny enough, I feel like you can though. You want to know why? Because I feel like our parents, for the most part, like I guess like the Spanish culture or just like culture in general, whether it be Spanish, Black, Indian, like Asian, whatever it is, right? Everyone tries to, I feel like not everyone tries to keep their culture, but majority does. And like people kind of try to break away through rebellion. And your mom in a way was like trying to break that away because of whatever trauma maybe she went through. Yeah. But you had your own form of rebellion.
I think it was.
And your form of rebellion was actually going towards the culture in a way, I think, slightly, like subtly without you even realizing.
In a way, I think it was less going towards the culture and more just like developing my own like way of thinking. Because when you think about it, think about what you're, you guys particularly, your parents are trying to force you into the certain mindsets of like how things are done and stuff. My mother did the same thing with me, except, rather than being the traditional Latino mindset, it was the more American westernized mindset, which is, I feel is like, not a lot of kids experience that to the drastic point that I did. But yeah, again, it always fascinates me that in a way she was doing what her mother was doing to her, except it wasn't as limiting, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
In terms that like she was telling me like, no, you should go out more. No, you should. It's like, but mom, I'm an introvert that is a little bit antisocial and can't socialize that well.
You
I'd
remind me
rather
of
stay home
Wednesday.
and just read and watch movies and just hang out and like have just like, you know, maybe 5 friends at max. And you know,
Wow.
because I guess my mother was very like extroverted and social and stuff. So I guess like maybe she just couldn't understand it. But it is interesting when you think about it. And, you know, and not for nothing, like with your parents too, I can also forgive that mindset because think about it. If you're an immigrant going to a new country, especially one like, let's say the United States or even countries in Europe that are very, very just like independent thinking and forward thinking. When you go to a country like that, you don't have much coming with you. So you hold on to that culture and that mindset because that's all you really have at that point. You're going to a country where you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you don't even have a lot of money, so you're just holding on to this culture that you were, you know, born and raised into. And you know, it's, you don't know much else.
And then you're also trying to assimilate into like the new culture.
Exactly.
That you're going into.
It's a very tug and pull, I feel. This is just based off of my observation and hearing stories like yours from other people raised in similar circumstances. Although I am shocked with your mother that she treated your son, I mean, your brother, her son, just as limited because I've had many friends that I grew up with, Central American, Latin American, that the boys, I always tell people that like if I was born a boy, it probably would have been a much different circumstance than you know being born a girl.
Usually boys get like kind of free range. But like going back to the culture thing, like coming, like we were talking about like our parents being immigrants and all that stuff, us being maybe first or second generation, you know, Americans, coming into the country, like there's a language barrier as well. So now obviously you said English was your first language, and let me ask you, do you speak Spanish now?
So I am getting better. My beautiful boyfriend, his whole family, they're Colombians and they're all bilingual and they're very, very patient. And through them, I've actually been practicing my Spanish. And he has said that he's heard an improvement from like the few months as I've heard. So, and again, I really didn't learn Spanish. Like it was so sad, unfortunately, like with my father's mother was better with English. My mother's mother was a, you know, typical country girl from the DR. We really communicated through just various nouns and words associated with food because like she would take care of us, which is a shame because like I would have loved to have talked to her more if I could have, but yeah, no, I mean as of now I'm getting there. I wouldn't qualify myself as bilingual, but I would say I'm at least, if you drop me in the middle of a Spanish speaking country, I probably could find my way back home.
So it's funny, my mom she'll always use this phrase. Basically it translates to I'll defend myself. So like she'll like when we refer to anybody,
Spanish.
Me puedo defender, se defiende, right? So like we'll be like, yeah, my you know Americans say un poquito Spanish or whatever, right? You know, it's kind of like, all right, like I can understand it, can't really talk it, but like I can defend myself, like, you know, exactly what you're saying.
That sounds like a story of a Puerto Rican girl.
Oh, girl, Puerto Ricans is a whole other topic.
That's this topic here.
Little Puerto Rican, New Yorkican.
Yeah, literally. I feel like it's like that's the one thing that I struggle with as a Puerto Rican. That like, you know, I'm Puerto Rican and Ecuadorian. The Spanish that I did learn was from my abuela because she, you know,
Wait, which one? The Puerto Rican or the Ecuadorian?
The Ecuadorian.
Okay,
one.
so
yeah, the Ecuadorian we call her
makes
abuela.
sense.
My Puerto Rican one we call her grandma. So no coincidence there. But yeah, my Spanish that I learned was from my Ecuadorian, but it's that weird like disconnect. Like I could totally understand.
You can understand 100%.
Usually
like,
that's the case.
Yeah, like literally, I could understand what you're saying.
I didn't know you could understand.
For some reason, like no, I can understand that when you're talking shit about me, I hear you. No, no, but
watch out.
So like it's weird though because it's like that weird disconnect of like I can understand you, but like it's a one-way signal because I'm like
you can't say nothing
I
back.
can't respond.
Really?
Like not saying that I can't like respond. Like obviously I have my like basics that I could do, but like when it comes to like being grammatically correct,
it comes down to those conjugations.
Yeah, and I'm such a like perfectionist that I'm just like if I can't speak it, I'm just not. But that's like my own fault because I should just at least give that effort. But
So actually, with that, my mom always told me and like anybody else that she speaks to about, you know, her coming to this country and learning English, because she'll speak English and she'll have a full blown conversation with you.
Like 100.
100%. She'll have a full blown conversation with you. You'll catch the accent 100% on 1,000. She's got a thick accent. Grammatically,
but she's not embarrassed.
No,
right?
but now when she first got here and she was learning English, she was so embarrassed to speak. So embarrassed. So
my mom is embarrassed.
It's like you feel slightly judged. You know why? Because like, especially from other Spanish, other Spanish people. Like when you're trying to speak with them, I feel like low key, I'm like under the microscope of like, well, you're Spanish, you don't understand Spanish.
No,
and I'm just like, and then I have to use that excuse from Puerto Rican, and they're like,
that makes sense.
I get it. And I'm just like, that's my safety like blanket, but I'm like, nah.
But you know what's crazy? There's a lot of Puerto Ricans that know Spanish.
Yeah,
there are.
To the
that
T.
stereotype is like,
it's crazy.
Like 50-50.
It's New York-Rican.
It's more New York-Rican, if anything. You're 100% correct. Because if you go to Puerto Rican in like
if you go to Puerto Rico, Florida,
Puerto Rico, or anywhere else, they know Spanish.
Right, but like going back to that, like just like I was telling you, like my mom, she was so self-conscious about her Spanish, and I'll tell you right now, to this day, her grammar's just not there when she speaks English. But she's come such a far and long way where she's accepted it, and like she had this one of her bosses who, when she first got here, she would force my mom to speak English. And my mom would tell her, I'm so self-conscious about my English because it's not good. And she's like, who cares? You try, you practice,
that's
you
it.
learn, and you perfect it.
I will say the younger millennials, and definitely I would say 100% of, I should say this, like I would say 85% of Gen Z, very accepting and understanding of people who don't speak Spanish. For me, it's like, don't speak English. I meet like people who speak any kind of language and I hear them struggling with English. I find myself like, you know, not in an insulting way, but trying to, you know, slow down how I speak English, use simpler words that they can understand. Because at the same time, it's like, even if I meet somebody that's speaking Spanish, right? As much as I want to practice, I know at the same time, it's like, if I speak simple enough English, they're practicing, they are learning, you know? And occasionally, you know, sometimes if I see they're really struggling, I was like, okay, let me break into my pseudo Spanish here and try to help them out. But again, I feel like if you're coming into America now, at least in like pretty civilized cities like New York, Miami, LA, even certain cities in Texas, you know, people are fairly tolerant of it and understanding, like, okay, you know what, this person, they're learning, they're trying, and the least I could do is be patient and understanding with them. There's no need to insult them or criticize them. They worked hard to get into this country, and I'm not going to sit, you know, I'm a natural, at least for me, it's like I'm a natural born citizen. Who am I to step on their toes? Yeah. You know?
Exactly. So with that being said, Amber, practice your Spanish, girl. Have no shame.
Exactly.
I gotta practice my English.
You know,
break that off.
I'm like the opposite of you guys.
The hack that I do is like, because I watch a lot of TV and a lot of movie.
That's how my mom learned a lot of her English.
I put subtitles on the TV in Spanish, and I just like, you know, through that I'm able to learn at least the congregation and some of like adjectives and nouns and stuff like that I can be like, okay, now I know how to say this if I was to use a sentence kind of thing.
Yes. But like being a bilingual speaker, I can't even speak English right now. Being a bilingual speaker, I speak fluent English and fluent Spanish. However, if I don't use my Spanish, I tend to lose it a little bit, which is crazy because my mom tells everyone this story. When I was little, she would force me, you speak Spanish at home and you speak English out at school or wherever we are. And like, I did not want to speak Spanish growing up. So she would force me, which I thank her so much because I can hold a
huge advantage.
Yes, I can hold a
100%.
solid conversation.
I wish my mother had that mentality when I was growing up.
Same.
Yeah. But that's the thing. From what I've noticed, if I don't use my Spanish, it just goes to like crap. And it's crazy because I've grown up my entire life speaking both languages. So with that being said, that just goes to show you really got to practice it.
If you don't use it, you will lose it.
Yeah. So like being that I have both of them, I lose it. Like that's why I'm encouraging you.
All right, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
I feel like español, mija.
From now on, just speak Spanish to me. That's it.
Okay.
I feel like
de ahora en adelante, este podcast
va a ser en español.
Solamente en español. El Tings Talk.
El Tings está super Spanish.
We're gonna have like the little like subtitles. We're not switching over.
Yeah,
to
I feel like I'd be
international.
botching both. Like I
Yeah, I
kill
do too.
Spanish and I kill English. Like I can't do both fluently. You know what I mean?
Spanglish.
Like I speak Spanglish.
Just call Benelli la mata idioma.
Mata idioma. I kill both languages. Like I have a
The
list.
language killer.
I have a list with the English, and then in Spanish I have like nothing comes out. Like it's all weird.
People think it's weird. It's like
It's all messed
I
up.
speak Spanish, and a lot of them will be like, "You're from Spain?" And I'm just like, I'm honored that you would think so, but no, not only relatively close, man. But it's interesting. I think though, although I think her intentions were well.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's all about intentions. It really
Exactly.
is.
And same thing with your parents. I think like they meant no harm in how they raised you
Absolutely.
guys. They were just trying to look out for you in the best ways that they knew how.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure growing up in like because many of our parents came from probably small villages, small towns.
They did.
Where they didn't know,
Yes.
they didn't understand how big the world was, and they came to the U.S. and they saw how big it was, but at the same time, it's like, it's like this
It's a culture shock for them, you know?
It's an interesting dichotomy when you think about it, like the
Yeah.
push and pull of it. But listen, like I said, we're all standing here. We're all sophisticated, educated women, and we're
Yes.
successful.
Yeah.
We're not doing bad things to people and stuff. We're doing good things. So I like to say that our parents overall did pretty well.
I'd say they were successful.
I was
yes.
gonna say we touched on a lot of different cultural points
Mhm.
throughout this whole topic, but I will say that I'm thankful for your guys' parents because they raised very great women.
Yeah, they
Yes,
did. They
so,
did.
So did Mama. So did your Mama. Mama Red.
So we're gonna wrap this up. But if you guys have anything that you want to drop in the comments, maybe some personal experiences culturally going up, drop them down below. We'd love to hear it. And once again, thank you, Adrina, for joining us again on the Tings Talk
Thank you.
podcast. We
Thank you
loved
so
it.
much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure to talk about this kind of stuff. Normally, only my dog hears about this kind of stuff. So I appreciate being able to say to actual humans.
Scarlett.
And and as always, I enjoy talking to you guys and hearing what you guys have to say as well.
Aw, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, ladies.
Cheers, ladies.
To strong and independent Latina women.
Yeah, there we
Salud
go. Salud.
to the Granberries.
Salud.